In 1987, John Hughes did it again, as he gave us the ultimate Thanksgiving road movie. In fact, the only Thanksgiving road movie with planes, trains, and automobiles. The story about a short-tempered advertising businessman called Neil, played by Steve Martin, who after a business meeting is determined to get home to his family for Thanksgiving, where he bumps into happy-go-lucky travel salesman Dell, played by John Candy, in which after a series of unfortunate events, much to Neil's dismay and annoyance, the two end up traveling together where everything you could possibly imagine going wrong goes wrong, where all manner of wacky adventures ensue, to which this unlikely pair of odd characters end up developing a strong friendship. The first thing that stands out about this movie is the chemistry between Martin and Candy. They play off each other perfectly, with every scene they are in pretty much being comedy gold. But above all, Planes, Trains and Automobiles has warmth, with an ending that's bound to tug at the heartstrings. That, and Planes, Trains and Automobiles is probably the only time you're going to see Steve Martin wipe down his face with John Candy's underpants. So today we are going to celebrate Thanksgiving with my US viewers, as we look into planes, trains and automobiles, as we look into 10 things that you didn't know about this comedy gem. So, let's check it out. Number 10, it's based on a real-life travelling nightmare. Although during the 80s, John Hughes was most well known for writing teenage comedies such as 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, for Planes, Trains and Automobiles he took inspiration from a real-life travelling nightmare he experienced. It happened when Hughes worked for an advertising agency company in Chicago and had to go to a meeting in New York. He planned to go to the meeting and return back to Chicago at 5 in the afternoon that very day, but thanks to bad weather, he then experienced lengthy flying delays, to which when Hughes finally did manage to get back on a plane, his plane was then diverted to Denver and then Phoenix, to which what should have just taken a day took 5 days. Huh. Wow, that's really enough to piss anyone off. Number 9, original ending. Oh my god, the ending of this movie. No, seriously, the ending of this movie. Where despite their differences, Neil invites Dell to his family home for Thanksgiving dinner. It's a particularly touching moment coming after Neil discovering that Dell's wife had actually passed away several years earlier. This ending seriously gets me every time, and transcends the movie from being a comedy movie to a great and classic comedy movie. I always watch this scene and I'm like, I'm not crying, you're crying. However, originally the movie was going to end with Dell travelling back to Neil's family home, and then once Neil walks through the front door, Dell then decides that Neil should be alone with his family and leaves, and walks off on his own. But you can't end the movie like that! Where is Dell supposed to go? I mean, talk about a Debbie Downer of an ending. The ending that we ended up with has warmth and kindness and completes the overall story arc and journey of the movie. The original ending of Dell leaving would have made the overall experience feel cold and pointless in hindsight. All I can say is I am so glad that they changed it to the ending that we got. Number 8, Elton John wrote a song for the movie. So if you want to have a memorable song to be released with your movie, who else better to get than the Rocket Man, Elton John himself, to come up with a track? Elton John recorded a song to be used in Planes, Trains and Automobiles. So, what happened? Where on earth is the Planes, Trains and Automobiles Elton John song? Well, there was a conflict of interests, as Paramount Pictures, whom were distributing Planes, Trains and Automobiles, wanted to have full ownership rights to the master track of the song, but John's recording label refused. And thus not only was the song not used in the film, but apparently still to this day hasn't been released. Oh well, never mind, that very same year, the same thing happened to fellow British rock legend Paul McCartney, who wrote a song for The Princess Bride which wasn't used. Number 7, filming locations. John Hughes originally envisioned shooting planes, trains and automobiles in Chicago, as with most of his movies, but as fate would have it, nature got in the way, as apparently there just wasn't enough snow. Steve Martin said that the constant search to find snow made the cast and crew experience their own planes, trains and automobiles misadventures, similar to those seen in the movie. Most of the filming took place around the state of New York, including scenes shot at Lambert International Airport, and the shoot lasted about 85 days. The shoot ended up being much longer than anticipated due to John Hughes constantly writing rewrites to the script while actually filming the movie. Yeah, I'm sure the rest of the cast and crew would have just loved that, having to be filming in the cold snow even longer, just so Hughes could accommodate for his rewrites. Hughes is still a genius though. Number 6. The movie goes all large Marge on us. Okay, this isn't really something you didn't know, but still something I wanted to bring up anyway. The scene where Dell drives the car in between the trucks. A scene of sheer insanity and panic, where Neil starts to hallucinate and sees Dell as the devil, where for a brief second we see them both as screaming skeletons, complete with eyeballs. It's terrifying! The whole scene is terrifying! What with its intense music, camera angles, and performances from Martin and Candy. But why does it never get talked about? A similar scene was filmed in fellow Hughes movie Home Alone 2, where we briefly see Marv turn into a skeleton when he was being electrocuted. But that was more funny, whereas this is just nightmare fuel. I mean, if the visuals aren't enough, just listen to Candy's crazy hysterical laughter. To me, this is very similar to the large Marge scene in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which is also a night scene involving a truck, where for a split second, Marge, the truck driver, turns into a demon from hell. And everyone agrees that it's pretty damn scary. So, I don't get it. Why is it we can agree that the large Marge scene from Pee-wee's Big Adventure is creepy balls, whereas the near-death truck hallucination scene from Planes, Trains and Automobiles gets a free pass? It is time for this scene to get the spooky factor that it deserves, so it can sit proudly with Large Marge and the tunnel scene from Willy Wonka as a random, out-of-nowhere scary scene from otherwise non-scary movies. Number 5. Planes, Trains and Automobiles was going to have a different director. So with Planes, Trains and Automobiles going into production, director Howard Dutch was set to direct. This wouldn't be the first time that Dutch had directed a John Hughes script, as he had previously directed Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful, of which both movies he did an excellent job with. So what happened? Well, when Steve Martin signed on to star in the movie, Hughes decided that he wanted to direct the movie so he could have the chance to work with Martin, on the account that, you know, he's Steve Martin. So a switcheroo was done to which Dutch would direct The Great Outdoors instead, which was also written by Hughes and, like Planes, Trains and Automobiles, starred John Candy. Number 4. Another John Hughes film makes a cameo in the movie, before its release. There is a scene where while the Neil character is painfully trying to share a bed with the Dell character, we then cut back to Neil's wife Susan watching TV in bed. Only the movie she is watching is She's Having a Baby, which is another movie that was written and directed by John Hughes. But what makes this interesting is She's Having a Baby wasn't even out yet, as it would be released the following year in 1988. I guess they needed footage of a random movie, so just used footage that was already at hand from She's Having a Baby, probably footage that was currently being edited together. Either that or Susan Page was watching an illegal copy of a film not yet released. She's Having a Baby star Kevin Bacon also turns up in the movie in a cameo. In fact, the movie has several familiar faces from John Hughes films. Neil's work colleague was played by Ferris Bueller's dad. The rent-a-car receptionist was played by Grace, the high school receptionist from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Oh, and the hotel manager was played by that lawyer from Jurassic Park who gets eaten on the toilet. Yeah, I'm not saying that Jurassic Park is a John Hughes movie, just, throwing it out there that he was in Jurassic Park. Number 3. Deleted scenes and characters. Actress Jeri Ryan was originally meant to star in the movie. In the geek community, Ryan is probably best known for her role as the Borg drone in Star Trek Voyager. She was to star in the bus scene where she played a fellow passenger. However, the actress apparently couldn't stop laughing at the comedy antics of Steve Martin, so the scene had to be completely refilmed, this time without Ryan. I guess you can't blame her. After all, I would have been laughing my ass off too. Also, there was a deleted scene where after the car blows up, Neil and Del attend a strip club to use the phone, where of course Del gets distracted by the strippers. Actress Deborah Lamb starred in the scene and apparently didn't know that the scene involving her character was cut until she attended the movie's screening.
Ooh, ouch, that's gotta suck.
Number 2, Steve Martin versus the MPAA. All things considering, apart from the odd innuendo here and there, Trains, Planes and Automobiles is a heartwarming comedy movie that should no doubt be fun for the whole family. Except for one scene. A scene where Steve Martin's Neil character returns back to the rent-a-car centre, where for a minute straight, he says the F word an insane 18 times. Wow, that's a lot of F-bombs. This naturally took the movie from having a PG rating to being slapped with a hard R. And yes, it couldn't even make a PG-13 rating, as in order to get that rating, the movie could only have about 1 or 2 F-bombs. And considering that PG and PG-13 movies made more money in the box office, it was actually a ballsy move to keep this scene instead of going for a softer rating. Planes, Trains and Automobiles did go on to make $49 million at the box office on a $30 million budget, but maybe its box office could have been higher had it not been hit with an R rating thanks to this one scene. Either way, it's a funny scene and Planes, Trains and Automobiles is a better movie for it. And supposedly it was this scene that made Steve Martin agree to star in the movie in the first place.
Ah yes, Trains, Planes and Automobiles. Wholesome Thanksgiving fun for the whole family. That is until you have to stop your kids from constantly saying the F word after watching.
Number 1. The original cut of the movie was over 4 hours long. Supposedly after the real-life awful travelling events that happened to Hughes that inspired him to write Planes, Trains and Automobiles, it only took him a mere 3 days to write the script, and of course being a John Hughes movie, it was a script full of memorable comedic shenanigans. However, not everyone was convinced with the script, namely Steve Martin, who felt that the script was too long, and even suggested to Hughes that the 145-page script should be cut to size, along with removing certain scenes. Martin would supposedly go on to say that the first cut of the movie was a whopping 4.5 hours long. Yikes! Now Martin is a funny guy, so maybe that was a sarcastic way of him saying it was an awfully long film. There are, however, claims from other members of the production who say the original cut was actually over 3 hours long, so either way it was originally a very long movie. But hey, in my opinion, you can never have too much Planes, Trains and Automobiles, so I say bring on that 4-hour cut. If it's out there somewhere, I'm sure there's lots of fans who would love to see it.
Seriously, I cannot recommend Planes, Trains and Automobiles enough. It is hilarious with memorable characters and plenty of funny scenes, which also tugs at the heartstrings, as it's the classic story of two completely different people who by all means should not be together, finding common ground and even friendship. And what better way to celebrate Thanksgiving than a tale of putting our differences aside. Anyway, I'm Minty, and seriously, that skeleton scene, guys, just terrifying. Whew. See ya!